Everybody, welcome back. And we are jumping into GitHub and some of its capabilities that you might not be aware of. So GitHub, obviously a major part of working as a developer, not only in terms of keeping track of your own code, but how are you working with your teammates? Oftentimes in a project, you'll have multiple developers working on the same piece of code, sometimes even on the same branch. That's pretty rare. And you need to be aware of some of the habits and etiquette that come with using GitHub, as well as some of the other features that are lesser known, such as its projects feature. So we're gonna be moving forward, keeping track of this project using GitHub Projects. And we'll go ahead and create it with a basic Kanban template. And here what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to keep track of the issues that we have already created in our repository. So we have those 6 issues, right? So we can go ahead and drag them in here. So we have a couple of things here that we want to do, right? So we have certain sanity, IO, schema objects not displaying, and that's an issue that we're going to go and look into later. Continuous integration and deployment with the Amplify console, building out an events API using Amplify CLI. So we're going to be coming to that a little later. Having a functioning experience system. So right now, we have our items here, but we're not actually marking anything as complete. And that's really not a surprise because we haven't yet integrated our profile system, right? And so for this profile system, we need to create a new user pool with Amplify CLI, which we have done. However, we need to now tie in the API and configure it with AWS Amplify, maybe edit it a bit based on any new API changes. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move this into in progress. And here, showing educational content from Sanity API, looking at this stuff right here, right? This is actually working now. So while we're going to make some modifications to this later, for now, we're going to go ahead and close the issue. And we'll go ahead and move it to done. Okay. So as you can see, this is a pretty nice little interface because it helps you see what items you have left to do. And you can always add new columns or rename columns. So we can change the to-do column to be the product backlog, right? So, using the more technical name. But what we're going to be focusing on is using the profile system. So, and before we jump back into that programming, looking at Git, we have a couple of things that we're doing right now. So the first thing right now is we're pushing all of our code to master. Maybe this is something that's fine if you're just working on a little side project and you're just pushing code like a fiend. But in general, this isn't really going to work for us long term. The master branch needs to be synonymous with the deployed production environment. Right now, we have no deployed production environment, so it's a little moot. But once we actually deploy this web application using the Amplify continuous integration product, this master branch is going to be the source of truth for our deployed application, because when we merge a pull request from the develop branch into the master branch, it's going to automatically build and deploy to our production environment the master, the code base that's in the master branch. So For right now, this is fine, but we're going to want to create a branch called develop in a bit once we have our first deployment. And more so than that, the workflow that we're going to have in the future is we're going to be creating new features, and we're going to name them feature slash name of the feature. And we're going to merge that branch into the develop branch. And the develop branch is going to have its own continuous integration process, and it's going to build and deploy. And then once we can verify that the deployed code is working, is functional, after whatever code review process we go through, then we can merge the develop branch into the master branch. So that's kind of the process that we're going to take. And we'll go through this again, but since we have no deployed environment right now, we'll just keep everything on the master branch for now. So moving into the profile system. So we're going to need to do a couple of things here. So we're going to need to, well, first let's close some of these unnecessary files here. So right now we are currently configuring Amplify with this AWS mobile object, right? Coming from AWS exports. And right now this just has the information about the user pools, the web client ID, the identity pool ID, the cognito region, etc. If we create a REST API, a DynamoDB, CRUD API with Amplify, it'll automatically auto-generate an updated AWS exports object. However, our API exists through the serverless framework, so we're going to need to go ahead and configure it a different way. Before we do that though, let's go ahead and build out the static components that we're going to need to be able to accomplish this. So, oftentimes the easiest way to, build out some components is to kind of see what code you already have and take that code and repurpose it. So I actually made a couple of changes in between the videos here. I added a reset password and a change password component almost verbatim from the serverless stacks tutorial. And so if we take a look at this reset password, or actually let's take a look at the change password component. It looks like a pretty typical class component, right? So we have a class called change password, which with a constructor that initializes a state. We have a form validation function, meaning that we have a function that makes sure that every single field in the form is filled out before a user can send it in for a request. And what this does is it prevents us from sending empty object attributes to our API, prevents any errors from taking place. We have a handle change function, and again, this is for our form fields to be able to update based on the state of the component. And we have a couple of, well, in this case, I guess we just have a handle change click component, and it's a component that essentially will it'll get the current user from the auth.current authenticated user API, and then it's going to change the password based on the current user, the old password, and the new password, and then it's going to push us to the /settings route, right? And so below we have the JSX over here, right? Okay, so we can probably reuse a very good chunk of this. So why don't we go ahead, Command A, Command C, and let's go ahead and create let's actually go ahead and create a new folder here. And we'll call this folder profile. And let's go ahead and create a new file called create, or let's create the component called profile form.js. And right, and so here let's go ahead and Command C that. So let's go ahead and change password. Now let's go press Command D, and we're going to change every reference in the file from change password to profile form. Now obviously we do not yet have a profile form.css, so let's go ahead and create one here. And we obviously don't need some of these functions here. So we want to have a validate form, but we want to edit this based on the new values that we are going to have. We want to keep the handle change event, and we want to go ahead and change the handle change click event. Well, let's just go ahead and change this to handle create profile for now. And so here we have some stuff related to the password being changed, which we don't really care about. We're gonna change this so that it pushes us to the home page once it's done. And actually, yeah, well, yeah, we'll do that. And so what we're gonna want to do is we want to change these forms, right? Because we don't care about old password or new password. Now we care about different things. So let's go ahead and change this. So let's go ahead and change this to go ahead and change password to first name, last name. Change it to, we want to add a field for somebody's GitHub account. We want to have a field for somebody's phone number. We want to have a field for, what do we want to have a field for? Well, luckily, we've actually already wrote some of this out previously in a React Native application. So let's actually go ahead and search for FSA Hub here. Let's go into the React Native Expo here. Let's take a look here in the components. App. Oh no, we want to be in the screens folder. Screens folder, create profile screen. Okay, what do we have here? Oh, okay. So that I mean, that all makes sense. Okay. So what do we have here? So we have fname, name, city, region, country, technical rank, community rank, GitHub, date of birth, Myers-Briggs. Some of this stuff isn't actually being used here. Yeah. Start date. Right, so that's only being used there as well. Loading false, the mentor ID. Yes, exactly. Okay, so we have a couple of things going on here. So we want to have the, yeah, and I actually don't know if we want to have the phones, but we do want to have the city, region, country, and this, and keep in mind, this is not necessarily everything that's inside of the actual profile object. This is just the initial state. So why don't we scroll down and take a look at the actual user object? Okay. So what's going on here? So we're doing a couple things. We're creating an ID, which is actually the user's ID that's given to them by Cognito. And we are also creating something called an apprenticeship, a product, and a mastery. This mastery is not being used right now, but we are currently using the apprenticeship. So essentially what these are here is, this is the user's profile with all of these different aspects, right? We have the product ID, apprenticeship ID, begin ID, mastery ID. We have an expo. This is for the expo notification token. And we have a created at account. And then all of these are apprenticeship IDs. This is the schema object for our experience system. So it's pretty simple so far. It just has the member ID, type, it's approved, whether or not it's approved, title, description, the GitHub profile associated with the product, and then 15 milestones that have either been submitted or approved. So all in all, pretty simple, right? Well, I don't know if it's simple. Might be a little bit more complicated than I'm giving it credit for. But let's go ahead and we can actually go ahead and take this user object. We can take this apprenticeship object and we can take this product object, because we actually really need all three. And this is all going to be in the handle create profile function, right? This does state fname, this does state mentor. Right. XP of 0, city, this, city, this, country, community rank, technical rank, experience, LinkedIn, instructor, who's your instructor, what is your Stripe information, PayPal information. A lot of this stuff, obviously, as you can see, is half-baked. It's stuff that I'm thinking might be useful at some point in the future. Doesn't mean it will be. The begin ID. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Currently not using the mastery ID at all. Right, okay. So we're going to want to import the UID library from the UID library, and we're going to want to make some UIDs here. So here we are creating our user object, and that user object has an ID. However, that ID is, we're actually going to pass it in through props. So we're going to do this dot props dot user ID. All right, well, we'll just call it user ID, or maybe we'll just call it username. Now I have fname, lname, mentor, XP is 0, because starting out you have zero experience, obviously. Your city is this city, your country is this country, you have this community rank, you have a technical rank, you have an experience. I have honestly forgotten what this is. Your LinkedIn, your instructor, Stripe, GitHub. Oh, this is whether or not you are an instructor. Product ID, that's the product ID itself for the product and the apprenticeship. Okay, so we're going to want to make an object called let product ID equals UID.v4, and then we're going to want to have an object called apprenticeship ID equals UID.v4. So a UID, again, is a universally unique identifier. Here, let's actually take a look at what one looks like here. So let's go into our app.js here, uauth.current session. Okay, and let's actually go ahead and let's take another look at what our session looks like here. So this is what our session looks like here. So we have our access token, ID token, and refresh token. So the ID token has the information about our user, but I believe also the access token does as well, right? So it's all in the same. It's all the data is replicated multiple times, but our sub or our cognito username, that's what this is, right? And this is our user ID. So that to us is important. So let's actually do this. Console.log session dot ID token dot payload dot sub. Let's see if that logs out the right thing for us here. Looks like it's not. That's a shame. Oh, not get ID token. I just want the ID token. That's it. There we go. Okay. So now let's go ahead and have an attribute here called username. And let's go ahead and set the state of that username to be the session.id token .payload.sub. And then let's pass this username throughout the rest of our application. Whoa. Must have pressed something. But anyway, it seems like it's saved. And in the profile form here, we want to be able to call this .state, this .props.username right here. And we're also going to put our ID as the default mentor ID right there. Okay? So this is going to be the default mentor ID for everybody that logs in. So all of the students are by default going to have a mentor, which is going to be me, since I'm running the show for the time being. And well, we want to access that this.props.username. So let's go ahead and have a component did mount function here where we can test to see things are going right. And we can go ahead and console log this.props.username and see if we've gotten that. And we want to actually look inside of our profile form as well here. Why don't we go ahead and close out why don't we comment out these form groups for now. Okay. So we want to go ahead and create a new route for this profile form component. So import profile form from, remember we created a new folder called profile, and yeah, why don't we just go ahead and make it authenticated route path equals /profile /edit, the exact components being equal to the profile form. And crucially, see here, we're passing in the child props through React Router. ID is not defined. Profile form.js. Line 81, line 123. Right, so we do the .props.username, and we'll also swap it out here to be this .props.username. Okay, now let's see here, where did we have, oh, it's because we're not on that page yet. Let's go to /profile /edit. Oh goodness. Let's go ahead and comment that out for now, and we'll go ahead and comment this out for now. Okay, profile form JS27, right? We are getting the username that we figured out right here. We set the state of username to be session.id token.payload.sub. We set the state so that this empty string became this, and then we passed it along, passed that value through React Router as a child prop, and we passed it all the way here to this profile form component. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so now we have these items here, right? So let's actually go ahead and make these forms here. So we want to have a couple of forms, right? We want to, so we don't want this old password. We want fname, right? For the first name. I don't know if we want type password. I think just put text, I believe. Amp change this .state.fname. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing here. Lname. We're gonna change this to last name. Control label is like, it's like the black text that's above the actual form itself. Okay. GitHub. So this is your GitHub username. And we're going to be using this because we're going to pull the user's profile picture from GitHub. Okay, we have that. Now, we want to have the city that they're in. We don't care about the address, but we do care about the city because we want to understand a little bit more about our members. And we want to understand where's the growth coming from? Where's the demand coming from? So that we could then potentially pair them together and to provide them better service by directly connecting them to that community that they're looking for. So city, country, GitHub, first name, last name. Is there anything else? Region. I think we could probably just keep region out of this for now. I don't see it as being super useful. So we have that, right? So let's see that we didn't make any major mistakes. Okay. So let's go ahead and add this form validation function back. And all this form is really doing, it's really nothing too fancy, is it's just making sure that every single one of these state forms has has a length of at least greater than 0. And what that means is that there's at least one character in each of these forms, meaning that there's no form that's empty. So does that mean that the forms are filled out correctly? No. Does that mean that they couldn't be full of total spam or lies? No. They could definitely be full of those. But what it does mean is that we are not going to have empty forms that, when sent to our API, could trigger errors. Okay. And so now I believe you can see, right, that this is a disabled button, right? But if we have at least one, then all of a sudden it becomes available, right? Okay, groovy. So remove this HR, unnecessary. Okay, so we have these objects that are created, right? But we're not quite doing anything with them yet. And we're not doing anything with them yet because we haven't yet integrated the API for it. So let's go ahead and write out the logic for what this would look like. So we're going to want to await API.post to the name of the service, which we haven't connected yet, but let's just go ahead and call it Pareto. And we're going to have the /users route. And then we're going to have an object where the body is going to be the user. This user object that we created right here, right? So the body of the request that we're sending to the /users is going to be this object called user right here. So, and this is not being used, so let's take that out. This .state.mentor that is being used, create at new day, okay. And it's going to be very much the same here. Await API.post to the Pareto service. And the route is going to be I believe it's going to be /experience. We could do a quick little check here. So this, so users.create is to users. But here we want to go create experience, just experience. Right, that looks correct. And again, the body of the request is going to be the, the apprenticeship ID. Not apprenticeship ID, just apprenticeship, I believe. Right. And similarly, we're going to do await API.post to the Pareto service. And we're going to, again, hit the experience route. But this time, the body of the request is going to have the product object. So the reason why we're hitting the same route is because these experience objects are very much the same, right? Except they just have a different type and a different title. But these values actually are tied together to our sanity API information right here, right? So this can have the same boilerplate, object, and it just gets the data from here, and we're going to integrate the front end so that it basically ties together it updates this API based on the experience object that someone's looking at, right? So this priority underscore 15, that means that this is the 15th object here. So we're basically combining these two sets of data. But for right now, the next step in our process is going to be to actually connect the serverless framework deployed Mongo API to AWS Amplify. And that's what we're going to cover in our next video.